Hi, welcome to the Fresh Perspective podcast. I'm Nikita.
And I'm Jessie.
So I made these cookies. They're amazing. You know how I kind of eat like paleo, I think I've mentioned before?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like healthy cookies kind of, but depends how you look at it. Like I don't ever count calories. I look at nutritional value, and that's kind of what paleo and keto are about. So yeah, so it's literally there's no refined sugar in them, and there's no wheat or anything. It's like almond meal, coconut flour, almond butter, which is a game changer in a cookie. And they are just moist in the middle. Excuse the word moist. Triggered.
I'm all for that. Love it.
They're healthy. They're healthy ingredients. Maybe not if you eat the whole batch in one. Like I've tried to be a bit self-control.
Yum. How
But
many
I'm
days
gonna
has
be
it been
eating
now?
them. How many days?
Yeah, since you baked them.
Oh, yesterday.
Oh, okay. How many have
Yeah.
you eaten?
I'd rather not say. No, I think 3. So it's not that bad.
It's not bad at all.
I used, have you heard of Loving Earth chocolate?
No.
Oh my God, you need to get on it. It's like healthy chocolate. It's made out of coconut nectar and cashews and stuff like that. It's vegan. It's refined sugar-free. They're amazing. So, yeah, I made them as the chocolate chips. And it's just, anyway, I just wanted a quick shout out to my cookies.
Yeah,
You hear me
do it.
munching.
That was like probably the best intro ever. I loved it. Love cookies.
Right?
The best. Okay, so on to today's topic. We're actually going to have a little chat about self-confidence, which is a big topic. This is where Jessie's personal branding comes in with her big sister vibes. This is where we get it
Yes,
from.
if you listened to the last episode, we
Yes.
discussed my personal brand, which was a little bit lost before that.
But here we are now, and she's going to add a bunch of value to us, just part of
Yeah.
her branding.
I'll
I'm
try.
excited. I mean, I've got some value too, but I feel like Jessie, you've got the experience and you've been through a lot. Like I know a lot of like your journey, and I think that's going
Yeah.
to be so good for everyone to hear.
I hope so. So, do you want to get straight into it, or do we want a bit of an intro topic? Because usually we have a bit of a chatty intro, but we only talked about the cookies, and I'm wondering, do we have a subtopic that we want to briefly discuss? What's been happening? What have you heard? What do you love?
What's been happening in the world? Well, currently, I am focused on the uni assignment situation. That is life, but it's fine. I am actually started a new Instagram account for
Ooh.
communication and PR, which I had a little chat about in last episode. But otherwise, that's kind of been taking up most of my time. Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm really struggling with, I don't think it's time management, but it's also like self-discipline. So I would love to hear your top 3 tips on how you stay on task, how you stay organized, and how like you fit everything. You know, if you have a really busy day, how do you make sure you use the time you have to do those tasks and prioritize? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Give us
yeah,
your
yeah.
top 3 tips,
Okay. So
please.
I'm all for sticky notes on your laptop. Those are my godsends. Like every Sunday night, I will do the entire week, and each week has a different colored sticky note with the things that I know
I love that.
I need to get done. Yeah. And then the night before that night, I will add the other things that need to get done. I also add times. So if I know something's happening at a certain time, I'll add that time, which then leads me to tip number 2, which is use your calendar. I like to add everything, even if it's not an important event. I like to add everything that I need to do in my calendar at certain times. So, for example, I will block out the time period we decide for podcasting, and I know that that's when that's gone. And then I think this is something I've learnt recently. Like I've had to kind of remind myself of this. It's to not overachieve the night before. So I used to, the night before, I would sit there and I would be like, okay, I'm going to get this, 10 things done. But
Oh, you mean like don't aim too high?
yeah, that's
Yeah. Unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Unrealistic expectations. Don't do that, because
I do that
I
all
think
the
it's
time.
also easier from that point to break things into small tasks, because then you feel like you achieve more. I used to always write,
Yes.
finish this assignment on this day. And it's like, what? Like, how?
Yeah,
So I
that's
think
such a
breaking everything
broad.
down, having your sticky notes and your calendar. Top 3 tips.
Yeah, I love it. Okay.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, because I've been struggling. My boss at the marketing place is a mother of a just 2-year-old. She studies full time. She's just started her second degree. She runs 2 businesses full time. She manages to fit the gym in most days and does bodybuilding competitions every now and then before COVID.
Yeah.
And she also maintains a social life, a marriage. I think that's it. Am I forgetting anything? I don't know. There's just so much. And I'm like, how do you fit
Yeah,
it
yeah,
in? And
yeah.
how can I not balance what I'm doing? Which
I was
seems
just
so
going to say that.
minimal.
You feel like when you see that, you're like, how am I not handling this? Like, how am I stressed out, or how am I not doing
Yeah.
this?
And
Yeah.
people say all the time, like, you're not too busy. You're just using your time wrong. And it's like, damn it, how do I get better at that? So,
That does
honestly,
happen to me. I'm not going to lie.
yeah.
I
We should do an Instagram post on that as well, because
we
I'd
should.
love for you to put your top 3 tips in there, because that's awesome. And hers were very similar. So you're on the road to being a business professional.
Oh, look at me go.
I know.
I was just going to say off that, I feel like this is where we differ. To me, I'm done unless I have a class, uni work by, I like to say before dinner. That's when I'm done. But when it's assignment time, it's usually I'll do another 2 hours after dinner. But I struggle to focus at nighttime. I'm way more of a morning day person. And I know for you, like when I saw your list of things the other day and you had 3 till 9 uni, I was like, what? I was like, you crazy woman. I can't focus. Like I can do an assignment
Yeah.
if I have to. But if I don't have assignments, I'm done before dinner. And then that's it. I can't do it.
Honestly, lately I've just been struggling so much that I've got to find as much time as I can. And I've been doing this thing every night without fail, where I'll get home, say I finish work at 1 or 2, I'll get home at 3-ish, and I'm like, cool, I have like basically till 9 p.m. tonight. I have nowhere to go. I try to go to bed about 9:30, 10 at the latest. So I'm like, I'll work till, I'll give myself 3 till 9 to get all this shit done, and that's heaps of time. And then I'll kind of try to go to bed, or I'll watch my show, or I'll do whatever. It gets to 7 p.m. and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did that happen? I've been just scrolling Instagram, or I've been playing with the puppy, and I'm over it. Like, I
think
need
it's-
to start being more disciplined.
And I think it's also because you have been at work in the morning. Like that isn't, you haven't just focused on uni work if you're sick of uni work. Like you've already kind of worked, and then you come home, you give yourself 20 minutes and you're straight back into work until 9. Like there's no downtime. So your body is like downtime, scroll on Instagram for 4 hours and you're like,
Yeah,
no.
I don't know. It's so hard. And I know if I like, so this morning I was like, cool, I have all of today. Well, I have today and tomorrow off. I knew we were podcasting, but I was like, I've got time to do this assignment and to do other things. So I have a bit of a to-do list. And then I was like, I'll get up at 7. I ended up getting up at 7:45 because I was so tired. And then I was like, I'll just make breakfast before I start doing work on it. So I'll put in my AirPods to listen to an audiobook or a podcast.
Yep.
And then I just get too hooked on that I don't want to stop listening. And then it's a downward spiral. And I've just been so bad. Like, I need to be very disciplined with it, to be like, no, this is your allocated time to do this. And then you can have, maybe I should schedule like half-hour breaks, or like every
do that.
half hour,
I know that
do a 10-minute
does
break.
really help a lot of people. I have to just I'm quite a procrastinator, and I just have to keep reminding myself, like this assignment I needed to do, I could not do it for like a solid 3 days. Like I couldn't do it. I was like, I can't write it. I can't do it, blah, blah, blah. I was being dramatic. And then when I sat down and just wrote it, like the draft is done, but it's not ready to be handed in as a draft. Like it's still really bad, but it's done. But when I just sat there and wrote it, it took me 35 minutes. And I was like, is this a joke? I've spent 2 days and it doesn't even take that long. But the issue is I know that we've blocked today out because I had classes, podcasting, then I have a meeting. And so like it's full blocked out today. and it's due the final on Friday. So I need to get my draft in, and I'm like, but today's gone
Yeah.
now. So last night I did nothing, and I'm like, you idiot, like get it together.
Yeah, so honestly, sometimes I find the pressing deadlines help to motivate me, which
That
I've
is
never been a leave it to the last minute person. Like I like to have it done early, but sometimes it's just like if I cut it so close, like because I'm the exact same, I allocated myself 3 till 9 p.m. last night to get my uni stuff done because I needed to get a draft in today. And then I was starting to get on a roll just as we were about to podcast. And I was like, damn it, like I should have done this last night. And now I'm not going to have
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
I'll make time this afternoon. I'll have to. But it's like maybe the pressing deadline of it needs to be in
Helps.
today
Yeah.
will help me do it.
Yeah, like I just said, I don't like to do anything after dinner, but today with this assignment, I'm going to have to do it because like I
Yeah.
need to get the draft in so I can work on it. So it
Yeah,
needs to be
exactly.
done. Like I can't do anything. I think I used to be all for, and I still kind of am, like getting things done straight away, working on parts when you can and starting
Yeah.
weeks early. But when I used to do that, the times I've done it, I'm then like, oh, like I can relax now. Like I've already done this much. It's okay. So then I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. I can go do this on the weekend. Then I come back and I'm like, I didn't do as much as I thought I did. And I actually still have
Yeah.
a lot to do. But I thought that was a
That's
good way, but I don't know.
I know. It's so hard. I
It's
think
difficult.
detailed to-do lists do help, like breaking it down
They
into
do.
smaller tasks. But honestly, I don't know. I just need a miracle at the moment. My self-discipline's been terrible, even with like, I'll say to myself, okay, you're going to eat healthy.
Oh,
You're going to
don't
exercise
get
this many
started on
times.
that.
Oh, right. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's difficult to just keep on track of it all.
It is.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's talk about confidence, shall we?
Yes. Yes, a little bit of a deep topic for us to get into, but it's like that, I think we've got a lot to give, a lot to talk about with it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone has their own confidence journeys and their own issues with confidence. Personally, weirdly relating back to our last episode and what we've mentioned in this one about my branding kind of being like the big sister, I've always been someone who seems to attract younger, it sounds really creepy when I put it like that, but like a magnet. I attract these younger girls
Me.
that have either messy lives or are just a bit lost and need some guidance, and they just seem to kind of look to me for, like, subconsciously I just give them, like, tell them my life experiences, and I always feel like, oh God, I can relate to you so much, and like this is what's happened in my life and this is how I overcame it. And it ends up me almost, I guess, mentoring them or even just being a friend to them, but like someone they kind of look up to like a big sister. I always end up becoming a big sister figure to these younger girls all the time. Like anywhere I work, anywhere I go, like it just happens.
I think going off that, what I like about our friendship is that you're just like, you've had the experience and you're so like confident and comfortable in yourself that you're just so like, you don't really give a shit about what other people think anymore. And that's what I love about you, because if I have something to say, or if I'm like nervous, or if I'm scared, or if there's something going on, you're just like, you just tell it straight out. Or if I'm like, just who I am as a person, like no one has ever told me things about me that you tell me. And I want someone to say to me like, you're not really that confident. Like you're not really, like you're good, but you're like, that's just a persona that you're putting out. Like you said to me, like, that's not really who you are. I'm like, wow, like that is so true.
God, that
I
sounds
love it.
really harsh.
No, I love it.
Okay, I
love
don't
it.
remember that exact conversation. What was that relation to?
No, just when we were talking about like my moon, sun, and rising, we got into it. And then you were like, yeah,
yes,
that's
yes.
exactly who you are. Whereas I feel like another friend would be like, oh, like no, like you know how they like
okay,
sugarcoat
yes,
it all?
yes.
Yeah.
The bloody
You know what I'm getting
horoscopes,
at?
which I feel like we should do a whole episode on because I love
Yeah.
horoscopes. But some
You do.
people don't believe in it, which is fine. But yeah, I did bring up to Nikita that there is, your 3 different sun, moon, rising. Sorry if you don't believe in horoscopes. I'm just very conscious of like a lot of people hate it. But I did, just was telling Nikita the different aspects and how they affect your personality. And it just kind of makes you feel a bit more like you know, you're not just one thing, and you can branch out, and there are different aspects of your personality, regardless of horoscopes, just in general, I feel as well. Like,
Yeah.
I was saying to you the other day, I had a friend who has always been like, I'm an introvert, and told herself that, and tried to keep to that label because that's who she thought she was. But then she's got to a point now where she's like, well, I don't have to be an introvert if I don't want to. Like,
Yeah.
and she's stopped. And it's like you almost label yourself subconsciously and try to stick to those things, which you really don't have to do. You can be whoever you want to be.
Yeah. And that also, in a sense, does lead back to last week's episode about personal branding, because it is kind of saying, like we said, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to put out? So,
Yeah,
like I said,
exactly.
you can pretend to be confident out in the world. It doesn't mean you have to be.
Which is one of my best tips, fake it till you make it, which I like
Yep.
to bring into as many episodes as I can.
All the time. All right, lead us
Yes.
into your self-confidence journey. Let's get into it.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, personally, I wanted to start out like, I think confidence is a thing that, you know, people always want. They always want it. They never know how to get it. And unfortunately, it's not something you can just buy or get overnight. Or people think like they Google tips or they ask you for tips as if it's as simple as me being like, Nikita, just be confident.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, thanks. It's like when you're crying and someone's like,
why didn't I think
just
of
get
that?
over it. Yeah. So it's really not a simple thing. It is a journey. It is a mindset. And I think it's a mixture of like your upbringing, your environment, and your personal experiences. Because if you've been brought up in a family like, or if you've been brought up as an, like, how do I put this? You can be an introvert. Like some people are introverts and naturally they just aren't as confident in things like approaching people or public speaking. That doesn't mean they're not confident in other things. Like you could be confident in who you are, but not confident in public speaking because that scares you. So I think it's a mixture of, yeah, like your personality, how you've been brought up in a family, and things you've gone through, whether it's school or just as you've grown up, boys, work scenarios. There's a lot of things that can happen to you that either kill your confidence or create confidence. And it can be really detrimental either way, or it can be really beneficial. So
That's true.
personally, when I was very young, I was just brought up in a family that were very like, you know, this is who you are. This is the body you were given. So you can't change it. Might as well just love it. And it was never like a shaming family or like close the door when you shower. You know, a lot of people are like brought up in these families that are so conservative. And I think I mentioned to you recently, I'm sure he won't appreciate me saying, but my boyfriend, if he needs to go to the bathroom or to the kitchen and we're in his room and he's in his undies, he'll put clothes on to go out to the kitchen. And I'm like, what? That's wild. But then if I've just gotten out the shower and I've just chucked like a little bralette and undies on, and I'm like, oh, I need a drink, I'll just go out in that. And he'll be like, oh, won't your parents see you? And I'm like, yeah, they made this. They don't care. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's just two
Yeah.
different upbringings. And,
Yeah.
you know, you're as subject to your environment in that sense. Is that the phrase?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, personality is a huge thing. But again, remember, you don't have to be a label. If you feel shy and stuff, I think it's something you should work on. Like, being shy is, everyone's a bit shy sometimes, and everyone's like a bit, you know, maybe you're scared to let people see the real you, or I don't know, whatever reason you're shy for. Try to get out of that habit, because you don't want to label yourself as shy or an introvert.
No.
You know?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And so don't try to don't keep to one personality and act as if that's the personality you have to have and have to be. You can be whatever you want. So just keep that in mind.
Fluid personality.
Yes. And yeah, the main thing that I think is really horrific, or can be really horrific, and it's scary. Like, I always think about having kids and I think about this and I think, oh my God, like, it just scares me so much because you have no control over it. And that is your personal experiences. You know, like, you can go through some horrific things that, who knows, like, it could be anything. So, like, personally, was brought up as this confident child as a, like, preschooler. People have made comments like, you were this, like, you know, didn't give a shit not toddler, but like 5-year-old or
Yeah.
whatever, 6-year-old,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
chat to everyone, chat to strangers, tell everyone, like really outgoing. And then I kind of got to grade 3 and 4 and I started to be like, oh, like I was in this new class, I think, and it was like, oh, I don't really know who my friends are, or I don't really feel like I've established a good friendship group, or I don't know who I am. And I think to try and fit in, I would try to relate to people. And I remember this girl had Converse, like really cool Converses, and played guitar, and I was learning guitar, and I thought like, oh, cool, like I love the Converse, I want to get some. And I remember getting them and people calling me like a copycat for it. And like,
Oh,
I just want to say, kids are so horrible.
they are.
This is what
Did
I
you add your
fear.
personal brand to those to make them your own, or did you copy her?
I did. I didn't get the exact shoes. I
Oh,
got ones
see?
that I loved. The only thing that was the same was the brand of shoe, which is hardly a copycat. Like,
Yeah.
it's like
Kids are just mean.
anyway. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I went through a really rough bullying snippet in primary school. And when I say brief, it was like 3 years, so it wasn't that brief.
That's not brave.
And it was just people constantly bringing me down, and I won't get into the finer details, but it was mean. It was like excluding me. I was on my own a lot. I cried a lot. I'd asked my mum to move me schools. I hated it.
Oh.
I thought, what's wrong with me? Why don't people like me? It was
Yeah.
awful. And then I remember one day I was like, I'm going to try and like make people like me and find out why they don't. And I did these little surveys that I handed out. It's a really sad story. I want to like go to that little Jessie and be like, you don't fucking need this bullshit. But
Get it
the
together.
yeah, but you know, doing it was what made like this journey start. So I kind of am glad I did.
It had to happen.
And
Everything happens for a reason.
Yes, exactly. And it was basically a little survey that I gave out to the people in my class to write what they liked about me, what they didn't like about me, and things I should change.
I
And
just
one
can't
girl,
believe, like, sorry, just quickly. Did you print it out and hand it out to people?
oh no,
like,
I
I'm just
wrote it. Like
confused with Liz.
I basically wrote, if you want the intricate details,
Yeah,
wrote
I do.
columns. So I had, what do you like about Jessie as a column? What do you not like about Jessie as a column? And what should Jessie change as a column? And I
And
gave
then they
it
could
out.
write in different rows.
They passed it around, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay,
I was
yeah,
like, you don't need to write your name. Like, I don't really care. But you could, you know, you knew people's handwriting back then.
Yeah.
So this bitch who bullied me all the time just wrote in the column, you don't like about Jessie, her face.
Oh.
And I remember thinking, wow, I can't change my face. So what the fuck?
No.
Like,
Yeah.
and it just made me snap and be like, you know what? Like, there's nothing I can do to make these
Yep.
people like me. And changing the mindset, why would I want to be friends with them?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, oh, they don't want to be friends with me. But I should have been thinking, why the fuck would I
Yeah.
want to be friends with people like that? I don't.
Yeah, that's just so horrible.
I know.
It's horrible.
But it really made me have these thoughts of like, okay, fuck, it's obviously the mindset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it just changed because I was sick of it. And I remember started standing up for myself, started not giving a fuck if I was on my own, just did things that I wanted to do and didn't think about it, got on with my life. And then in the, like, basically it was towards the end of grade 6. And in grade 7, everyone was kind of, they were mixing up all the classes, but my class, the teacher wanted to keep the same. So I was like, fuck this, I'm out. So I asked my mum to change me classes. And it was the best thing I ever did because I met all these new friends. And it's like, I think in high school and primary school, you feel like that's the end of, like, that's your whole world. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever had something happen in high school where you're like, you just feel like your whole world is over kind of thing?
Yeah, because that's all you kind of know. So you're like, what else am I? Like,
Yeah.
this has ruined everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, did you ever watch that show, 13 Reasons Why?
I've seen some episodes, but I never watched it as a
Oh.
full. Like,
Yeah,
I
okay.
kind of get the storyline.
Yeah, well, essentially, spoiler alert, so sorry if you haven't seen it and want to see it, but you're a bit late to the party.
Yeah.
It's
Just
about this
watch
girl who
it.
kills herself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all the people in school, like all these events happen that are horrible to her and she just ends up killing herself, which is really sad. But I did a video on it after because I was like, you know, like when you are in primary school, you do think that that's your whole world.
Yeah.
So I do understand, like people never understand why kids kill themselves, but you feel like if everybody hates you at school or something's
that's
happened
it.
that's really embarrassing, that's your whole life over.
And you don't know
'Cause you
anything
feel like
else.
you
Yeah.
don't. But honestly, once you
So-
leave school, you never see those people again if you don't want to. And there's so much more out there. There's a whole world out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. It has. I feel
Yes.
like that kind of happen. Everyone goes through that phase where you think that like that's it. I think
exactly.
just quickly going off your point, I
Mm.
feel like when you said like you changed class, it's the same thing as like doing something else, like going to uni or going to a meeting or something, somewhere you've never been and you don't know people. I feel like that's the perfect way for you to be confident, because you're like, no one knows anything about me. I'm going to be who I am and make this new version, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's the perfect time for you to just make the new version of you being confident.
Yes, exactly. And also like it's a
And-
good, I guess, metaphor of like, or not a metaphor, but it's a good point that if your environment is toxic, which mine was, then change it if you can.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Yes.
Then I made heaps of friends when I moved classes. That was really good. And then in high school, I had a few conflicts, like littler things. Like, I remember I dated a guy in grade 8 and his cousin was the grade above us. And she didn't like me because apparently I walked around all stuck up, which is just her perception. But again, I remember thinking, oh, damn, like I want her to like me because it's my boyfriend's cousin and they're close. But I thought, well, if she doesn't like me because of her wrong perception of me, then I can't change that and that's not my fault. Therefore, I'm not going to care about it. And I just like was more confident. So there was a few conflicts like that, small things in high school that just kind of built that mindset more of like it was almost like, you know, I was becoming more resilient to it. And again, I'm grateful for all of them because it just taught me to value myself more. And I think that's a huge thing. Like you need to know your value and be like, hang on, like it's not like I've done anything to someone. It's different if you've cheated on someone and then they hate you. They have a right to hate you in that sense. But if they're being mean to you for no reason, you've done nothing, then it's not your fault. You know, people can just be horrible.
They can. People are mean when they want to be. It's usually because they've got underlying issues, but that's a different thing to get into.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, really all those things it was a huge journey, and a lot of people say they went through school, they weren't affected by bullies, they had it pretty good, they kind of just got along, did their own thing, had their little group of friends and stuck to their own corner of the world. But then you don't have these, like you've never had, and I'm going to say this very lightly, tough times, because I know people have had tougher times, but you've never gone through something that you've come out the other end stronger of if you've just kind of slided by, which I don't know. Do you feel like that's you?
I do, in a sense. I feel like my whole schooling life, nothing to do with school itself and the way that I felt at school affected me at all. Like I had nothing to do with anyone that like bullied. I was a part of a big group. Everyone was friends. Until grade 12, we all kind of like weren't friends anymore, but like I'd kind of like moved on and accepted that. Like it wasn't like, I wouldn't say going through school as a whole, I ever experienced anything that horrible at all.
Yeah. And it's not I'm not saying you shouldn't want to, but I just think sometimes like, you know, some people would have gone through the stuff I went through and ended up really just hating everyone, antisocial or depressed maybe. Or some people go through it and become stronger from it and learn from it. And there's no telling how you're going to respond. But I just think like if you're younger and you're listening to this, like it comes with age. And I think with you as well, like the things you've said to me about you kind of caring what people think a lot, or you think about it a lot, it comes with, as you grow up, you kind of just care less. It's just a natural thing. And I think you see different priorities. Like, for example, even if you get a PR job, like a really high profile PR job, and then you see people that you went to school with, or like maybe you worked in a place that was a bit toxic, you'll see them and you'll be really successful and you'll be like, why did I care what they thought? Like, honestly, look where I am, look where they am. Like, just little things like that as you grow up happen.
I
and you just
honestly can say that we had this discussion a few months ago. And I think since then, it's like starting to happen where I'm like, oh, I don't really care.
Yes.
And I think it's also because of all the marketing things and PR things that I've done that I'm like, they're not really the people that I want to talk to or I want to be like a part of. Like, I don't really care what they think about me because I'm not doing what I'm doing for them.
Yes, exactly.
Know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's the whole change your mindset. You really need to think of your mindset rather than, like, one of the tips I said to you as well was like, no one, you always think, everyone naturally thinks, oh God, is everybody looking at me? Is everybody thinking I'm an idiot? What are they all going to think? But they're all thinking the same thing. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about them, or they're thinking about, no one is ever thinking about you, basically.
Yeah. And I will say I'm just like starting the journey and I feel like it's very long because I'll catch myself sometimes and I'm like, stop for a second, like it's okay, you don't really have to care. But then like I'm always like, oh my God, like I'm so dumb, or like people are thinking this, blah 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 blah, and then it's like the spiral downwards. So I have to just really quickly at the beginning change my mindset and then I'm okay. But if I don't do it straight away, then the spiral's happened and I'm gone.
Yeah, it is hard. And you know
It
what,
takes a
sometimes you're your
while.
own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And it can be
Very
hard
true.
because you've grown up in that mindset. It's hard to change the mindset, but you just need to like work at it every day, I think. And
Yeah.
like for me, obviously it was very peer based, like and all that. But then I got better at the peer thing, like my confidence with peers and my confidence in life. Like I've never really been that terrified of public speaking. Like if I have to do it, I can do it if it's something I'm confident about. Like even what really helped me was I got into music. I'd play guitar, like I said, when I was in grade 5, I think. So what's that, like 9? I think I was 9.
9 or 10 or
And
something.
then and then in high school later on, I did music as a subject, and I started just singing for fun, and I ended up singing in front of a huge crowd, and that was nerve-wracking. But the more I loved it and the better I got at it, the more confident I was in it.
Yeah.
But you always have your self-doubt days and you always have your low confidence days. I guess it's just about, thinking. Like, I'm not saying I'm always confident. I'm always like, there's times when I'm anxious. There's times when I'm like, oh God, I've got to walk into this lecture theatre alone. Or sometimes I freak out about getting petrol on my own, which is not a confidence thing necessarily. It's more like a, I don't know, just an anxious thing. Like, there's different things people are
100% agree with that. That happens to me all the time.
Right?
Like, I will be, like, say I am getting petrol. I have to think about where I'm going, what side I need to be on. Like, I have to plan everything so that I'm like, okay, get out the car. Then I get out the car. Then I'm like, hold the pump, and I'm putting it in, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, like, this is so uncomfortable, like, people. And then I'm like, what are you doing? Like, everyone puts petrol in that car. Like, what is wrong with you?
Isn't it weird, the things we get? Like,
so weird.
It's like, what I'm more nervous. It's more like if I go to a petrol station I don't know. So my local one, I always try to go to the same one because I know it. If I go to one I've never been to or I don't know well, that's when I get anxious, and it's so weird.
Yeah. And you're like, does the pump go on the same? Is it the same one?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? Where do I walk in? Yeah. I know
Literally.
exactly
And
what
I
you
saw a meme the other day about parking. Like if you're going somewhere new, you're so anxious about like, oh, well, where am I going to park? And it's like such a strange thing to panic about.
I do like a lot of deliveries for my sister's business. And before I go, I have to look up how far away it is. I have to look up the house address so I know what it looks like, where I should park, if it's a main road. And then I have to look, I have to go 2 streets back and walk like the little person on Google Maps to see like if I can turn, like if there's lights or if I have to go without lights. Because I need to, you know, like when you're driving, they're normally in the city, and you know, like if you do something, like if you're on the wrong lane at the city, you're gone. Like you can't get back. So I'm like, make sure you know. But going off that, like even the other day I saw someone putting like air in their tires, and like when my boyfriend and I go forward driving, he always puts air down. So I put it in with him, like all the time. Whenever we're together in his car, I always do it. But then I thought about me doing it by myself, and I thought, could never do that. But it's like, I know how to do it, so why? But I just know that in that moment, I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know how to do it.
Oh
like,
my God.
I don't want to do it. And I just wait for someone else to do it.
Oh my God. I don't think I've ever put air in my own tires, and it freaks me out because I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to look like an idiot. And recently, similar thing, going to a new gym, I'm like, oh God, like I find a machine and I'm like, I don't know how this works. Am I doing it right? And I'm trying to find like the lever that adjusts the seat and I can't find it, and I feel like an idiot. I'm like, do people people watching me think I'm an idiot, like, oh,
Yeah.
and it's like, why do I care? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just need to
it's-
ask someone. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I
so
know
weird.
exactly what you mean. I feel like everyone kind of goes through that, but
Yeah, like it's a journey.
it is about
This
that
is the thing.
mindset. I think the only bad
Yes.
thing about having that mindset is when you're in the moment where you are anxious and you're like, why are you anxious? Like, get over it. That when that mindset comes in, you're kind of like, because then you're just more like overwhelmed because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then one
Yeah,
part
then
of your
you're hating
brain's
on
like,
yourself.
just do it. No one's judging you. And you're like, but I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
No, I
cycle.
think, yeah, it is, isn't it? I think you have to get the right mindset. It has to be a mixture of you're being, like, I think what I found a really good piece of advice was like, act like you're talking to a friend or a little sister or someone younger than you that you're giving advice to, because then if you're like, oh God, I'm so nervous about putting petrol in my car, you'd be like to your little sister or your friend, you'd be like, oh, well, don't worry. Like, everyone does it. No one's going to be looking at you. You've
Yeah.
done it a million times. You got this. Like, kind of be
Yeah.
that for yourself. And that's so nice, I think.
That is true. That kind of leads on to a point I had about my self-confidence journey. I am a person, I found this out from my love language, that my number one love
Love
language
that.
is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And so ever since I found that out, I'm like, whoa, like that's so true. Like I need to be told you're doing an amazing job, and I need constructive criticism. So someone can say, if I hand something in or if I give something to someone, like a draft or something, and they only tell me the things I did wrong, that's not okay. Like I need them to say, this is amazing, but maybe work on that. Like constantly need approval and the validation and just the words of like, you're doing amazing. Like I have a friend
You're
who's
doing
like,
great, sweetie.
just, yeah. Like I have a friend who is just amazing at doing that. Like I'll do something and she's like, oh my God, like you're doing amazing. Like this is so good. And I'm like, oh, thank
Is
you.
that
Like
me?
it's just like, yeah, you're one of them. It's just like celebrating those small wins, which I think you need to do personally. But when someone else does it for you, you're like, I am doing good. Like, look at me. Like it's
Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think it's important.
I agree. That's a really
Which-
nice one.
I do need to clarify for the podcast. I know that before I said that I like that Jessie is more firm and tells me how she feels. But to me, I like that now because I find that refreshing because I'm so used to having people say to me
Just
such
to
nice things.
keep
Like
you
you
happy
always
kind of
give me
thing.
like the words of affirmation. But when you need to tell me the truth, you will. And I'm liking that now
Yeah.
because I realize from other people that they wouldn't do that. They'd just be like, oh, like, it's okay. You're doing really good. Do this. And then you're kind of
Yeah,
like,
and
oh, no, like maybe just step back. Like, oh, no, like, you know, think about it this way. And I'm like, oh, that is good. Like, I can't, people, when they constantly support you and push you really far is good, but it's also bad.
I think there's a difference between being hard, like you've said that I tell it how it is. I try to do it in a diplomatic way. Like I don't try to do it in a mean way. I think
No.
honesty is the best policy, and I think it's helping people. So like obviously you just need to be careful how you phrase things. I do it delicately to an extent, but sometimes you just need to say it how it is, and it can't always
Yeah.
be phrased delicately. So
No.
I am the worst for like people will take it personally and be like really upset, but I just think you've got to do it sometimes, and like I'm glad you appreciate it. I think people should appreciate it, and I think honesty is the best policy. Like you need to know. My boss is the same. She said like the past interns she's had, she'll need to warn them if they're having a feedback meeting because they get really anxious and they take it really personally and they get really sad over the next few days if she criticizes anything. Whereas me and her have like on the spot feedback where it's like, yeah, look, no, that looks terrible. You need to do it like this. And I appreciate that brutal honesty. So we've talked about that. I think you need to
Yeah.
like make it clear to people how you best deal with it, if that makes sense.
I think the reason I love being your friend so much is because A, you're a great friend and you're like my big sister, but B, it's also because you are kind of training me that you need to hear honesty. Like someone needs to tell you the truth when you need it. Like someone needs to be able to let you know. And I love that. I think the only downfall is that you do it, but you do it so nicely that I still might meet someone that's just going to like be really mean to me. And I'll be like, what? why? Why are you being mean? And then I was crying.
I mean, I can up the intensity if you
Yeah,
like.
okay. Like, you'll like tell me something like full honesty, like full truth, but you'll still give me those words of affirmation in it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what I love. You're
But I
like,
think
you're doing
that's
amazing.
important.
I love it.
I think if you
my
get someone
favourite.
that's really harsh, and it's the intent's not nice behind it, that's when you need to be like, oh, well, there's a difference between telling it how it is and being a dick,
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
Also, I think this one's like a hard one to word, but it's like my confidence as a person has been, since all those incidents, and obviously I've come out of high school, and in high school I was pretty confident in who I was, confident in what I liked, and stood up for myself a lot, you know, had my own back a lot, and had my friends' backs, like such a loyal, like aggressive friend if I had to be. Like, you mess with my friend, you mess with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, just very confident in that sense. And obviously the confidence in things I do, such as the music, that grew over time too. And then I think, honestly, like, I could be the most confident person in myself and standing up for myself and all that. But when it came to boys, it was a different story. Somehow I could let boys absolutely crush my confidence because I got into this toxic, like, oh, but I still care about them, and their own, like, making excuses for them. I think, like, it's really hard. I don't know if it's just different kind of relationships, but it definitely tests you. And I think another big test for me with the personal experiences thing was going through some really tough relationships that started out nice and kind of ended up being pretty toxic, and me having the confidence, like, try to get that confidence back and get out of that situation, if that makes sense. Like, I think I felt in my most recent ex, that was probably the toughest confidence crusher. I literally felt myself lose my own confidence as time went on, and lose my own, I guess, like, just self-worth.
Yeah.
And if
how
you
long
lose
ago
your
was that?
self-worth,
Just quickly, so we can see like, how long the journey took you.
Yeah.
When
Look,
you started to gain it back.
it's embarrassing because we dated. It was one of those really intense relationships where the feelings were just so intense, like, thought he was the one, etc. So it started 2000 and I want to say 16. We dated for, we were seeing each other for quite a while, but our official relationship was actually only 6 months. However, it was 2 years after that of back and forth. Like, honestly. And it was terrible, like, terrible for my self-worth, terrible for my self-confidence. And I don't know why, but it's always the men that would ruin all the work I'd done. And it would just make me, I wouldn't stand up for myself, or I'd let them do shit that they shouldn't do and then kind of go back to them anyway. And it's ridiculous. But I think it's almost, I don't want to blame it on my star sign, typical white girl, but I think it's my nature of not giving up on people. Like,
and wanting to help people.
Yeah, I want to everyone always says, like, you want to fix them. I don't think it's that. I think it's like, I don't want to give up on them, and I feel like they're being horrible to me because they're going through something, and I try to see it as that, and I try to get back to the person I met that was so lovely. You know what I mean? It's so wild.
Yeah.
And
I know what you mean.
I'd moved back to Australia. Like, he was in England, this relationship. I moved back to Australia, and for 2 years, he would just contact me and have a bit of a, oh my God, I want to get back together. I want you to come back. And we'd talk for a few months. Then we'd have a big argument over something and block each other and not talk for a few months. Then it would happen again. It was a constant cycle for 2 years.
That's crazy.
And every time it happened, I thought, you need to have better self-worth. You need to not do it. And it did take me a long time to finally be like, I'm not interested in going back to that. I'm over it. Like, I am done.
Yeah.
And it's hard with relationships. It gets so much harder. So, honestly.
Yep. I think one of the areas I've found where I feel the most confident would be in what I'm studying. I think it's when you kind of feel like you know what you're doing. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes if I'm talking to someone in the industry, Yeah. Like if I'm talking to someone in the industry, I get a little bit nervous because I'm like, I'm still learning. I probably don't know. But I'm talking to someone else and people are like, oh yeah, like that is interesting. You're like, oh, I do know. Like, you know, and then you kind of gain that confidence of what you're studying and what you're doing. And you know that that's what you want to do. You're like, I am confident. Like this is what I can do. And I think that changes your confidence overall in general in who you are.
Yeah.
Because you just kind of find your area. Like you said.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Find something you love.
Yeah.
And try to like get the confidence out of that, because if you're really good at something and you find a hobby, even if you don't think you're really good at it, you do it a lot. You are, like we were saying, I think it was in the last episode with your personal brand, like find something you love. It doesn't have to be something you think you're the best at, but if you love it, you'll make it the best.
Yeah.
So, and if you love it, you'll be confident in it because you love it.
Exactly. So, I'm thinking now we go into some tips and advice that we've got.
To say the same thing. We are on the
so
same
alike.
wave.
Okay, so that was kind of tip 1. What do you have for tip 2?
Yes. Well, I've already said it, but fake it till you make it. Or as Sarah's Day says, act confident and no one will question it.
It's very true.
Both really good tips.
It is. I do actually have that down here because it's so good. I feel like everyone should just do that. But I also think... Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, I think you literally can trick yourself into believing it. Like,
yes,
if you act confident or if you fake it,
then you're like, oh, I am confident.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And you get into a habit and a routine.
Exactly. I think another good tip or word of advice is just knowing what makes you feel confident. So that could be like working out and being like, yeah, I feel good, eating healthy, wearing cute clothes, wearing makeup, a bold red lip, doing your hair, like knowing what makes you confident, and then walking out the house or even sitting at your computer, like doing something and you're like, oh yeah, it's okay. Like I know what I'm doing. Like I feel good in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you go to like a meeting or a networking event or something where you're not confident, if you're going to get fuel, just wear something that makes you feel confident. You'll feel good about it.
Yes. Equally, under that, I think it's important to do something that makes you uncomfortable as often as you can. Like, not as often as you can. Probably you need to make sure, like, yes, find the things that make you confident and do it with those things. So, like, yeah, if getting fuel makes you really uncomfortable, as you said, do something that makes you confident, like wearing comfy clothes and looking your best maybe, which sounds silly to go get fuel, but if it works, it works.
Yeah.
And then go do that thing. But make sure you are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone often so that it's not such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
I do agree with that. And then you're kind of like, I think when you overwork yourself and like when you think about something so much, like you're overthinking, you're like, this is going to be blah, blah, this is going to be horrible. I'm so scared. And then you do it and you're like, wow, that wasn't horrible at all. Like that was fine. Why was I so overdramatic about that? That kind of, that's kind of the reason why you should do things that make you uncomfortable, because it's in those moments where you're like, oh, that's actually a normal thing. Like I shouldn't be nervous about that at all. Okay.
What have you got?
I think that you should surround yourself with a network or a group of people, friends, that are supportive and can kind of help you on your journey and aren't just gonna pull you down and just ruin that. You kind of need to. I find I'm most confident at the moment because the way, like Instagram even, or just my friends in general, I'm surrounded by people that are career-driven women, and the women like put a lot of effort into their career and they're confident and they exude that, and they're all older than me. They're like role models, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, okay, I am confident because they're all supportive of me getting there. And I'm like, this is good. Yeah. Whereas I feel like in school, when you're with like that group of like school friends and it's like the cool group, you're kind of like, oh, I'm not confident because I'm not like part of that, and they can see what I'm posting and I shouldn't post that because they can see. Yeah. You know, I feel like you've got to be surrounded by those people that just support you and lift you up.
And I'm glad you brought that up because we were briefly touching on it before, and I was going to say that, but I remembered it was one of your tips. And I do think, yeah, I know, it's just such an important one because, again, it comes down to the people you surround yourself with or your environment. Like, I think if I'd have had some really good solid friendships in primary school. Not that it's easy to do because your primary school isn't really where you make them. They're all dicks.
Yeah.
But anyway, the bullying would have been easier because I'd had people there.
That's
And
true.
it was easier with my family because they were a good support. But it's easy to be confident when people around you are putting confidence into you and giving you words of affirmation, like you said. So
Yes.
I definitely think that's a huge one.
It is.
One of mine is the worst case scenario really that bad? And I like this because I think, let's say the petrol example.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm going to this petrol station. I don't know. I need petrol. What's the worst case scenario that can happen at the petrol station? Honestly, I can't even think of a worst case scenario. Like people will see you not being able to find the pump and you'll have to turn around and it'll be embarrassing. Is that really that bad?
I actually had a scenario happen to me where I was going to get my fuel, right? So I'm getting my fuel, everything's fine, and I'm nervous about it. But I went to the same place I always go, and it's actually where my mum works. So I normally go see her on the way, but she wasn't there that day, and I was running late. So I was like, whatever. So I parked in the area, and there was a car in front of me. And so I just put the fuel in because I was running late, and I put petrol in instead of diesel. And I put like 2 little droplets in, but I thought that was the end. I had to go in there, talk to this woman. I was like, oh, like I've put the wrong fuel in. And there were like these like tradies that were in there getting lunch. And I was mortified. I was like, this is so embarrassing because I've put the wrong fuel in. And she was like, how much did you put in? I was like, oh, I don't know. And she checked and she was like, you've put like 20 cents in, like it's okay. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yes, you didn't even like hold the nozzle. You just put it in there. She was like, I'm sure it's okay. I was like, what if it blows up? And she's like, it's okay. And I was like, okay. So I get in the car, I drive to the correct pump, and then I put the diesel in, and then I'm like, okay, that wasn't like, it's okay. That wasn't horrible.
And it's a human thing. Like we all freak out about stupid shit that we realize later isn't that crazy. And I just think, like, actually there's a petrol station near my house that one time a guy went and held hostage and threatened to blow it up.
Huh.
So that could have been
the worst case scenario.
But you know what? If I was there, I probably would have died. So I wouldn't have. It wouldn't have really mattered.
That's true because it wouldn't have happened. That is true.
Silver lining. It's
true. I think along with the supportive network is when something like that happens. Like when it happened to me, I had 2 responses. So some people would respond and say, oh, like, that's really funny. Like, that's fine. It happens. At least, like, nothing bad happened. It's okay. And then I'd have people that would be like, you are so dumb. Like, how can you not tell? And I'm like, oh.
And that's
and
the
then
people
I
you
feel
cut
like
out.
that's when you kind of go for the other people that are, like, more supportive. And because, like, it happens. Things happen to everyone all the time. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Yep.
Yes. Your next tip.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I know there's some free workshops in that you can find that help you through your self-confidence journey. There's this guy named Dylan something. I cannot remember his name. It's like Dylan TH something. I can't remember. But
okay, we'll link him or something.
We'll link him. He is, I know a few of my friends that are doing his like self-confidence journey. It's like he does a few videos each night and they're like live webinars and he gives you like a little work booklet that you go through and then you like write down all this stuff and then like people are saying that's like helping a lot. And I feel like that would be pretty cool. Like I kind of want to do one, I think, just to see because I know one of like my friend that did it, she said she didn't even really know those things about her until she dove deep into why she's like that and like why she feels so nervous and anxious about all this stuff.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like it's pretty cool. Might look into it.
Yeah, give stuff a go.
Yeah.
I've also got I'm trying to like wrap them up into one, but know your worth, which I've touched on, so I don't really want to repeat, but you know, I think if you know your worth and have self-respect and self-worth, then you will be more confident because you'll be like, true. I shouldn't be treated like this and how dare you say that to me? And again,
it's true.
Changing the mindset to more of a, oh, how do I get them to want me to be their friend versus why should I want to be friends with them if they're a dick, you know? Improving your self-talk, which we've also talked about, just giving yourself self-affirmations. And yeah, like I said, act like you're talking to a friend or a sister that needs that kind of
Yeah.
affirmation talk, you need to do that. And also celebrating your achievements to yourself, as we've also talked about. So we've kind of touched on those tips. I've got 2 quotes and 1 more tip. And how about you? Do you have any more tips?
No, we've gone through mine. I think the only other tip I had was leading off the last episode about personal branding, which we kind of touched on, which was kind of pretend to be confident if you're not and put that out, fake it till you make it, like you said. I think that's like one of the main ones that I like to go for.
Yeah, I
like
agree.
That's tip number 1 for me.
Yeah.
But yes, give us your quotes and your other tip.
Okay, my last tip is more of like a guideline or I don't know if you'd call it a tip, but I just think personally that from 18 to 25, it's a huge period of self-discovery. You should be going on these self journeys, and it is your like primitive, is that the right word? It's your prime time to develop. Like, you are developing into the person you will be forever to an extent. So I honestly just want to emphasize the importance, like, if you are like, when am I going to meet the love of my life and get married and have kids, and you're like 18, please don't think about that. Think about you. And I think just little things like that. Don't stress about, I was the worst for it. I would stress about my future all the time. But you know what? Like, if it'll happen, it'll happen. What'll be, will be. And you need to go on these little self journeys to just like go do things that are outside of your comfort zone. Go try things. Go do like an art class or a cooking class, or go traveling and see what you love. Find what sets your soul on fire, and make sure that you set aside some good years of self journeys and self discovery, because if you don't do that, I honestly just think you're never gonna know who you are as a person. Like, you need to know that person.
I just quickly going off that point though, because this is something I feel strongly about.
Yes.
Self-discovery and finding out who you are does not mean that you need to be single. If you think that you need to be, then that's when you know that you should be. Like, if you're not able to do your own thing and be able to figure out who you are on your own, then yes, you should be single. But I feel like that's the main point of a relationship too, is trying to figure out who you both are individually and then come together stronger.
Yeah. I personally have never been in a relationship where I feel like I could have done the things I've done and grown the way I've grown in a relationship. Like, my relationship now is probably the most healthy relationship I've ever had, and obviously I want it to be the forever relationship. But I still think, like, to an extent, when you're in a relationship, you have a responsibility to the other person. And you can't just go off and you always have to think about them. And I'm not saying break up with your boyfriend or whatever, but I do think that if you do get a chance to do that stuff on your own, people always think it sounds really sad to have to go off on your own and stuff, but I know a lot of people who just have benefited from it, and I think it's important to just have that time to kind of date yourself. And I can't speak for you because I've never been in a relationship. I never had a relationship at your age that was like a serious relationship. I've been with them forever and felt like I could grow on my own. So it's completely different perspectives, which is the point of our podcast.
Yeah, that's the fun of it. Okay, finish us off with your quotes.
Oh my gosh.
Because I love
Which one
them
should
both.
I do first? Okay, so I'll put the Margaret Thatcher one first.
Oh, it's my favourite one.
I said. Yeah, so her quote, Margaret Thatcher, if you don't know, I think she was the Prime Minister of England. I think she was the first female Prime Minister of England.
Really? I did not
Absolute
know that.
legend.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so her quote is, if you set out to be liked, you would be prepared to compromise on anything at any time and would achieve nothing. AKA, if you always care about what people think and are trying to make people like you, it's a never-ending battle. And you'll never get anything else done. So it's pointless to even try.
Very true. I love that quote.
Yes, I do too. Second one, this one definitely saved me from the bullying and changed my whole mindset. And it is, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And I love it. Because it's like, people who love you and care about you and are worth having around, they don't give a shit about, they're not going to judge you. They're not going to care what you do to an extent, and if they do care, then they're not worth having.
Exactly. Love both of those quotes. What a great way to
Yes.
finish.
I know.
I
So
love it.
thank you so much for listening, guys. And
Yeah.
leave us your comments and tips on confidence.
Yeah,
that
tell
you
us what else
have.
you've got. Or if you
Give us your
feel
journeys.
comfortable, I was just going to say that. Give us your journey,
Yeah.
what you've been through, what kind of made you realize your self-worth and make you confident, or just in general, what makes you confident? What makes you
or
feel
what you're
good?
doing to work on your own confidence.
Really,
Let us
anything is
know.
what we're getting at.
Yeah, just leave us a comment,
Really,
please.
any comment.
Please.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
Just anything, we'll take it.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, we
Okay.
shall speak to you in the next episode. We hope that you're loving the episodes. And
Yeah, we
don't
are.
forget to, we are loving them. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Both our personal account and the podcast account will be linked below in the show notes. Look at me getting my terminology.
Look at the love it. And rate us
also
5
subscribe.
stars.
Yeah, subscribe, 5 stars, all that jazz.
All the things.
Yeah, and let us know what you're thinking in general of how we're going.
Yeah,
with
we'd
this
love the feedback.
podcasting. Yeah,
Yes.
feedback is great. All right, we shall speak to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.